Welcome to the New Life Church Letchworth podcast, where faith meets everyday life and hope is always within reach. We're so glad you're here. Each week we gather to grow, to learn, and to be inspired. And whether you're part of our church family or listening from afar, this space is for you. A place to be encouraged, challenged, and reminded that with Jesus, there was always a new beginning. So get ready, open your heart, lean in, and together let's discover a life worth living.
Thanks, Sam. Right, this could go one of two ways, because obviously I'm a geek, so I've had to use technology for this. And I can't log into my iPad. There we go. So, for those, thank you for the introduction, Sam, by the way. For those who don't know me, my name is Matt, and yes, this is very much outside of my comfort zone, he says as he scrolls back to the top of the text that he does to see where we go. There we go. And yes, normally I can be found in the back, staying behind the camera, so that's great. I do have ADHD, so standing up in front of a group of people like this is very much outside of my comfort zone. It's intense, let's put it that way. So I'm a bit nervous, my legs are going, but we'll be good. And then on top of that, as I know full too well, we have cameras. So I'm fairly confident that my son, who is currently 10,000 miles away, is watching this in this way. So I've got to be good and, not completely sod it up for him. But I don't have a good side, and I most definitely prefer to be behind them. But anyway, so I digress. And I prayed long and hard what to talk about today. I mean, I could have gone down the route that Victor and Blessing did last night and talk about a very specific point or point of faith and what they do. And every time I did, I just kept coming back to the same sign that hangs in our lounge that I'm greeted by every time I walk through, which is that one, which is a bit random. I get it's a bit random. It's an interesting choice, but it does stay fairly relevant, I promise, as I waffle my way through this. So a bit of history for my faith. I was raised in a Christian family, but by Christian, I mean Christian. So every time the census got done, it's I'm white, I'm C of E, and that was it. I can recall 2 occasions that I've seen most of my family in a church. One of them was my sister's christening, and the other one was then my marriage to my wife 20-something years later. And that's it. But during my school years, the only chance I ever had to go to church, or any memories of church that I had, was singing hymns in assembly. Or things like the Harvest Festival. When you turn up to the Harvest Festival, and back in the early 80s, you get that fire and brimstone sermon from the local vicar, and I'm sure that the reason they did it was just to try and keep 200-300 kids to behave in the church while they're going through the sermon, and they did walk back through the village afterwards. So that was my early church. That's what it was, up until I met my wife almost 20 years later. And my perception of God was very much a figure who felt more about rules. You must do this, you can't do this, rather than any kind of relationship. So I met Helen in 2005, and Helen has always been upfront and confident about her relationship with God. And really from that moment forward, the cog started to turn for me. I took a bit more of an interest, but wouldn't say I was a believer, just agnostic maybe. And every now and then we would go to HCC, which is where Helen used to go to church during her late teens, just so she could see old friends. And I remember the first time we went together, we're getting ready on a Sunday morning, and I was fretting about what to wear. It's like, you've got to dress up to go to church, don't you? You don't just turn up in your jeans and a t-shirt. And she laughed at me and told me just to go as I am. No one cared. It didn't matter. And as you can see, nothing's changed. I still do. But in a stunning 180 degree, she did make me get my hair cut yesterday at the barber, rather than just running the clippers over it. So there we go. We're lucky to have been blessed with 3 children. But really, the things that started to change for me as far as my relationship with God became when our youngest, Lucy, was born in 2009. At the same time, our eldest was due to start at Hitchin Boys' School. So we lived in Letchworth at the time, and we lived in social housing. So Jordan was due to start in the August of 2009, September 2009 at a boys' school. And the house was too small and yada, yada, yada. And we were on a waiting list to move. And we'd placed a request to look at a house in Subury Avenue, up this side of the town over here. But due to an administration mistake, we weren't granted it. And it turns out they then turned and said, actually, no, that was meant to be your house, but we've already offered it to somebody else, but we'll take it away from them and give it to somebody else. It's like, no, that's not going to happen. You've offered it to somebody else. And then out the blue, a couple of weeks later, we got offered a house up the other side of Letchworth, a brand new 3-bed house, perfect for a family with 3 kids and everything along those lines. And at that point, it was just before Jordan started. I think we moved in the weekend before Jordan started at the boys' school. So we didn't have to worry anymore about how he was going to get to school from Letchworth. We just had to get him on the bus from here to Hitchin, which was a bit easier. And it seemed that at the time, when we look back on it, we had originally gazumped somebody's plan. By putting that request in to move to Subury Avenue, there was another plan in place, and we just didn't know about it at the time. And he had to put us back in a holding pattern and say, no, you can't. I've done what I have done, and this is where you're going to be. And that plan came to fruition, and we've lived there for 16 years now. But at this time, I was still on the fringes of church. I was still not a true believer, if that makes sense. I was still agnostic, but I hadn't started putting my foot into the circle to join everybody else. But that would soon change. Helen and I wanted Lucy to be christened, and we approached Simon and Louise Moore up at St. Paul's. And lovely couple. I'm really sad that they moved on to another parish in Liverpool, but a great couple all the same. And in the end, after much discussions, we ended up doing a Thanksgiving service for Lucy rather than a christening. The main reason being, as one of the responses we got from somebody who was going to be a good parent was, just blah, blah, blah. They are just words. It does not matter when you sit there and say that you're going to do that. And it killed our vibe for what we really wanted, so we went against it. However, to this day, I can still see Lucy in a little dress with her little bunches, sat on the steps underneath the altar in St. Paul's with her little My First Bible that Simon had gifted her as part of her Thanksgiving service. I think I've got a picture of it somewhere as well, but I still remember that. So shortly after that, Simon approached Helen about an Alpha course that they were running at St. Paul's. So this is late 2011. And it was from that point onwards that I realised that the big man upstairs has definitely got a sense of humour. So Helen was quite up for going, but I think she thought that due to my techie, sciencey background, I'd be less interested than most. So Simon turned up and he came prepared. So he brought his curate along, who, although he was obviously a curate, had also done 3 years with his BSc in various sciences at Cambridge. So he came. He knew the questions I was going to ask, and they had an honest conversation with me about it. So, and to be honest, it turned out it wasn't even really that hard of a sell. I loved Alpha. You could, if you haven't done an Alpha course, I'd very much suggest it. I know I can see a smiley face in the middle there. It's a good way to learn things about yourself, whether you believe or not. And it's also a good way to get a grounding or be reminded of the things that are important to you in your faith. And to be honest, I hold on to that time. So, but hey. But then life happened. You know what it's like. And although I was going to a home group on a Tuesday, there wasn't very much in between. I wasn't going to St. Paul's. The liturgical styles in the C of E just didn't suit me. And it just didn't connect. And over time, my engagement with the church just utterly faded. So you could say, if we go back to my hokey-cokey sign, that the left foot was firmly out for a little while. Some of it was exhaustion. Maybe some of it was a mental break. I don't know. More likely, it was just possibly that life was just taking over in ways that I wasn't prepared for. But honestly, I can't answer the question as to why. But looking back on it now, I can see that it's just one of those seasons that many of us go through. And at the time, life was feeling hard and quite unresolved, to be honest. And it was during this period, all my energy just went into getting through the day. Having no time for anybody but myself, everything else was just pushed to the side. I wasn't focused on anything. And to be honest, even now, I don't know how Helen and the kids put up with me through that time. Yeah, I get my words jumbled, sorry. All that I do know is that I'm incredibly blessed to have her and them by my side still. And I can say this now with the benefit of hindsight, but at the time you're unable to see it for what it is, because to me, there was nothing wrong. I was fine. I was just who I'd always been. And unfortunately, this season continued to roll around into November and December 2018. Helen had been trying to find a church and came to a New Life after a conversation with Becky Brandlin. And after a couple of visits, she persuaded me to come along. And for those who remember being over the road all those years ago, it was a brunch Sunday. And rather shockingly, I worked out that was over 7 years ago now. I've been coming to New Life, and I just don't know where that time's been. And the irony is not lost on me that even though I requested from upstairs that it was a nice, quiet Sunday and there would only be a couple of people sitting here today, that I somehow get to do this on the modern equivalent of that brunch Sunday, which always guarantees to bring a crowd, doesn't it? So, but I enjoyed those first services at New Life over the road. I wasn't a regular attender, once every 2-3 weeks maybe for a long time. But the leg was moving forwards again. I was getting back in touch with my faith and beginning to feel a little bit more positive about myself. And then the sense of humour came out again, because at the time I very much remember that the tech team was a bit short of numbers. And Helen would nudge me and say, "No, not going to do it. It's not going to happen. Nope, 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 nope." And then I couldn't say no anymore, and I was volunteered, which I believe I was volunteered by my wife, but to help with the move to the Free Church. So when we moved over here, late 2019, 2020, which then turned into running a camera, which then turned into a COVID pandemic, so more sitting around doing nothing on a Sunday. And then from that point onwards, the church is moving into streaming, and where I've been for the last 6 years-ish doing. But little by little, the little leggies, they kept moving into the circle, one at a time, maybe half a step here or a step there, but they kept doing it. But even then, so we're now 2020, 2021, I knew I was still in a season of pain. Not blaming God for it. I know it's not his fault. But I just wouldn't let him fully in. I just wouldn't let him engage with me fully. But I could put a mask on it. I could come to church. I could be happy. I could be everything you see before you all the time. But at home, I was worn out, and I was not a very nice person. I know what I put Helen and the kids through. If you've ever been fatigued, constantly fatigued, that's what I was like. So coming here, putting a smile on the face for a Sunday, going home, I was done. I was short and I was horrible. But through it all I was looking for was an answer. Why was I acting like I was acting? What's wrong with me? And I couldn't find that answer. It didn't matter. But as the doctor's visits came and went, and diagnoses were formed, and each prayer slowly started to yield some answers, not solutions, not this is going to fix you, but just answers to what's going on, at least we now knew what was happening. And we're well into 2026 now, and as much as I like to say that this is all history, unfortunately it's still clinging on a little bit. And really, it was this. Back in 2016, I just wanted to lose some weight. So I joined Slimming World, which was in this very hall. I ended up with a severely infected gallbladder, and it was the end of a start of a hard road where I've since been diagnosed with hypogonadism, which is that my body doesn't produce the male hormone testosterone. And since then, I've also been diagnosed with ADHD as well. So I have a lot going on in my head. My body is constantly fighting against itself to try and work out what's going on. And this has been a test, and not just for me, but for my family. And it's only been in the last few months, as my heart has opened, that I'm beginning to see the end of the road, and I'm beginning to feel happier in myself. So, as per the sign, maybe the hokey cokey really is what it's all about. Not just a stupid dance, but a story about building a relationship. Where you take that initial step forward, and you pull back and you hesitate. Maybe something goes on, you're not sure, so you take a step back again. Maybe it's a disagreement, maybe anything, I don't know. But then you take another step forward, and that other step feels different to the first step. And then eventually, as our relationships progresses, everything goes in. Your legs start, your arms go in, your torso goes in. But most importantly, your heart. That's the most important part. And God knows you, and he knows your heart. And if you take a while to fully open up to him, he understands this. Because patience is a virtue, right? Now, Joel and Sam actually had a preview to this, and Joel asked me if I had a favourite verse. And I struggled. Mainly, I don't tend to recall verses. It's ADHD brain muddles, I call it. But we have a little sign of hope at home that reads, there we go. God did not promise days without pain, laughter without sorrow, nor sun without rain. But he did promise strength for the day, comfort for the tears, and light for the way. Now, I like to take that as God gives us our strength on our worst days. Our faith in God and our relationships we hold help to strengthen our resolve. And I also see it as that we shouldn't bear the burden we are facing by ourselves. You know, unfortunately, I wish I'd known that 10 years ago. I wish I'd worked it out 10 years ago, as it would have saved a lot of heartache and a lot of problems during that period of time. Another thing that struck me this weekend, it's amazing what comes into your brain at ridiculous o'clock in the morning, isn't it? Was the parable of the sower. So for those who don't know it, but it's Matthew 13, verses 1 through 23. And it's been in my thoughts. It's just been jumbling around in there. And as I sat there and I thought about it and related it to the season of hardship that I was going through, I kind of realised that I was a bit like the seed that got stuck in the thorns. You know, I had good roots. I was on good ground. Had good roots, but the sunlight was being blocked, and the seedling, couldn't get any light. It can't grow. But for me, the friendships that I've created within our community in the church have slowly chipped away at those thorns like a nice set of gardeners and some shears, and allowed me to grow and allowed me to open my heart. And for that, for everybody in this room, I am truly grateful. And I do hope that if anyone feels that life is without meaning or they're at a loss, they can begin to slowly move that foot into the circle. Our Father is a patient man, and whether it takes 1 year, 10 years, or the rest of time, he will be there to guide you through and help you with your burdens. But I guess this brings us to the other half of the reason that I'm standing up here today, which is, I stitched myself up, realistically. That's what happens, but here we go. So a number of months ago, readers, last summer, I started to put some words down onto a piece of paper, read as a Word document on my laptop. These words slowly migrated into the opening lyrics of a song. And then the old ADHD noggin firmly filed these under to the to-be-done category and firmly went down another route. I don't know, I'd seen a plane or something. It was far more interesting at the time. But that was until the end of February. So I don't know, some of you will remember that a group of us went off to another church at the end of February and had a worship day. And the worship was around why we sing during worship. What does worship singing bring us? And it was a very enjoyable day out. I can't really remember a lot what was said. However, I do know if you speak to Joel, he did do at least 3 notebooks worth of notes that day, so they'll be able to work it out for you. But as part of the day, we had some workshops. Now, I'm obviously of the I can't sing, and I can just about find middle C on a piano. So I ended up going for the tech team workshop, didn't I? I mean, I know it's a bit of a shock, to be honest, and it was okay. Met some lovely people. Didn't really learn a lot, but met some lovely people. But on the way back, as we were all sitting on the tar button minibus, Gail was discussing her workshop, which was on songwriting and the use of AI tools to facilitate that. And it was interesting. We go back to, I'm a geek by trade. But to be honest, it got filed in the same location as that original note, somewhere back here, I don't know. But lo and behold, late that week, that little file I'd left reared its ugly head again. And during a quiet day off work, I finished off the lyrics. But it's funny how that happens, isn't it? Just when you don't expect it, something that you've done or something that you need or something that gets presented back to you to work with. I mean, how does it happen, really? I mean, I think I know the answer, but we'll leave it like that. The other thing that happened that day, rather bizarrely, was I learned how to say yes, rather than just saying no. Because I could easily have said, no, I don't want to do it, after I stitched myself up showing something to your parents. But me being up here is me saying yes. So this is me saying, yes, I'm finally there. So the song I wrote is called Your Son. And it's my story. So it's not one, I think half a dozen people might have heard it full stop. And it's the hokey cokey of my faith and the patience that Lord shows us above all else. And this song sums up the dance I've had with God for the last 45 years. And like me, this song, it's not perfect. It's not really finished. It's a bit rough around the edges. But it does stand as a testament to the end of the beginning of my relationship with God. The point where I can now stand in the circle firmly with both feet in. I hope you like it.
I thought I didn't need you. I thought I knew better. I heard your name, but I thought it didn't matter. I walked through life, searching for a meaning, chasing all the answers, but never truly seeing. I called it freedom, I called it my own way, but every road I took just pulled me further away. But you never gave up on me, you never turned away. Your love was always waiting, no matter what I'd say. I was lost, but now I'm finding who I am inside. You never gave up on me. You stayed right by my side. I feel the silence with noise and ambition. Tried to outrun the weight of my condition. I wore my pride like it kept me strong, but every night I knew something was wrong. I built my life on what I couldn't control, but I was still breaking underneath it all. You never gave up on me, you never turned away. Your love was always waiting, no matter what I say. I was lost, but now I'm finding who I am inside. You never gave up on me. You stayed right by my side. I ran from the truth, afraid of the light. Held on, see it just to feel alive. But when I stopped to let the walls fall down, I felt the peace I've been chasing all around. Ooh, I don't have all the answers. I don't need to pretend. I'm laying down the weight I've been carrying. You never gave up on me. Even when I'm scared, every broken step was met with prayer. I don't stand in fear, I'll stand alone. I stand forgiven. I'm coming home. Ooh, yeah.
Wow. What a story and what a song. Thank you, Matt, so much for... I remember that first Sunday a few weeks ago when he showed us this video of the song he'd made. He didn't know we were doing this series. And we were like, this has got to be something to share. But thank you for saying yes. Thank you for being bold enough and brave enough and finding the courage not only to say yes, but to prepare, to put the time in to come and share part of your story, to be vulnerable, just honour you. It was absolutely fantastic. So what a brilliant story to hear this morning. And I think one of the things that stands out so clearly is that, we said it already, faith isn't always a straight line, right? Sometimes we make a bit of progress, Sometimes we can retreat a little bit. Sometimes we have more questions, and the questions feel like they might not ever get answered. But actually what we find in faith as we go deeper with God is sometimes those questions don't get answered at all. What we find is the peace and a presence to carry on in life with faith, knowing that God is there. Maybe we don't always understand everything that is happening in our lives and the world around us. And yet, as Matt so eloquently put, God is patient. He is patient with us. He will continue to journey with us. He is present. He is always there, and he is faithful to his promises. And we've heard that today, and we heard that last week, that God doesn't give up on people. So I hope you know that this morning, wherever you are on your journey of faith, God hasn't given up on you. He keeps drawing near. He keeps offering an invitation. He keeps working, even in ways maybe we don't recognize at the time. But again, part of Matt's story is seeing God's hand with his sense of humor, doing things that only God can do. I mean, maybe if you've listened today, you've found yourself in a bit of that story, perhaps. Maybe you're taking a step towards God, or maybe you feel like you might be backing off at the moment. Or you just feel like you've got some questions. What a great place to be. You're welcome to join us to be part of our community, wherever you are on your journey of faith. But what I loved, as Matt rounded up what he shared this morning, he now feels like both feet are in. And that's all we can ask of anyone as they approach God, as they join us in the community of faith, is to put both feet in. It's not to have everything sorted out, all the right words, to have all life straightened out, but it's to put both feet in and to commit and say, God, I'm in this. I'm in this for now and for the rest of my life. What a brilliant thing to have come to. For some of us then, that invitation today isn't just having all of that figured out, but it's to take another step into that circle, to lean in, to be open, and to begin to trust that God is patient enough even for you on your journey of faith.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's message. We hope you found it encouraging. Remember, no matter where you are on your faith journey, you are never alone. God is with you, and we are here for you too. If this message spoke to you, please share it with a friend, and don't forget to connect with us online or in person. You can find out more about New Life Church at nlcletchworth.co.uk. We'd love to see you soon. Until next time, keep walking in faith, living in hope, and loving like Jesus.